In the early hours of June 6, 1944, more than 5,000 ships moved through the darkness toward the coast of France. On board were over 150,000 young men. Most had never seen combat. Many would not live to see nightfall. Ahead of them lay a wall of steel and concrete that Nazi Germany had spent years building. Behind them lay a single, terrifying truth: there was no backup plan. If this failed, the liberation of Europe might be delayed by years, maybe forever. This is the story of the largest invasion in human history, but more than that, it's the story of the decisions, the deceptions, and the engineering that made the impossible possible. Let's break down how it actually worked. By 1944, the Second World War had been raging for nearly 5 years. Nazi Germany controlled most of continental Europe. To win, the Allies had to do something they had never done at this scale: cross the sea and break back in. This was Operation Overlord. The plan was to land on the beaches of Normandy in northern France and open a new front against Germany. But there was a problem. The Germans knew an invasion was coming, they just didn't know where, and the most logical place to attack was not Normandy at all. It was the Pass de Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel, the shortest distance from Britain to France. The Germans expected the attack there. They concentrated their strongest defenses there, so the Allies had to do something clever. They had to make Germany keep looking the wrong way. This is where the story gets remarkable. The Allies built an entire fake army. It was called the First United States Army Group, and on paper it was massive, poised to strike at Calais. It was commanded by one of the most feared generals of the war, George Patton. There was just one detail: the army wasn't real. The Allies filled fields in southeast England with inflatable rubber tanks. They built fake landing craft out of wood and canvas. They broadcast a constant stream of fake radio traffic, so German listeners would hear an army that existed only in the airwaves. It worked. German command remained convinced the real blow would fall at Calais. Even after the Normandy landings began, they held powerful reserves back for weeks, waiting for an attack that would never come. Here is the first lesson of D-Day. The battle was not won only with force. It was won with information and with controlling what the enemy believed. Even with the perfect plan, D-Day almost didn't happen on June 6th. The invasion needed very specific conditions: a late rising moon for the airborne drops at night, a low tide at dawn so the landing craft could see and avoid the obstacles the Germans had planted on the beaches, and calm enough seas to move thousands of ships. These conditions lined up only a few days each month, and in early June 1944, the weather turned violent. A storm rolled in. The invasion was set for June 5th, then put on hold. Everything now depended on a forecast. A team of meteorologists, led by a Scottish officer named James Stagg, spotted something: a narrow break in the storm, a short window of calmer weather on June 6th. The decision fell to one man, the Supreme Allied Commander, Dwight Eisenhower. Go too early and the storm would scatter the fleet. Wait and the tides would not align again for weeks, giving the Germans more time to discover the plan. Eisenhower listened to the forecast, paused, and said simply, "Okay, let's go." He also did something most people never hear about. He wrote a note in advance, taking full personal blame in case the invasion failed. He carried defeat in his pocket while ordering the attack. That is what leadership under pressure actually looks like. Just after midnight, the assault began from the sky. Allied paratroopers from American and British airborne divisions dropped behind enemy lines in the dark to seize bridges and roads before the main force arrived. Then at dawn, the sea attack hit 5 beaches along 50 miles of coastline. The Allies gave them code names: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. On most of the beaches, the Allies pushed through at a heavy but manageable cost, but on one stretch of sand, the plan nearly collapsed. Omaha Beach. At Omaha, the defenses were stronger than expected. The first waves of soldiers faced withering fire from the cliffs above. For hours, the beach hung in the balance. That so many pressed forward under those conditions is one of the most sobering acts of courage in modern history. We remember them with respect, not spectacle. By the end of the day, against the odds, the Allies held all 5 beaches. Now the part that engineers love, because winning the beach was only the beginning. An invasion this size needed a harbor, somewhere to unload tanks, fuel, food, and tens of thousands of men every single day. But the Germans held all the real ports, and they were heavily defended. So the Allies decided something audacious. If you can't capture a port, bring your own. They built 2 enormous artificial harbors in Britain called Mulberry Harbors. Giant concrete and steel structures floated across the channel in pieces and assembled off the French coast. An entire working port delivered by sea. They also laid fuel pipelines across the bottom of the channel to pump gasoline directly to the advancing armies. And they built strange, specialized tanks, machines that could clear mines, lay bridges, and cross soft sand, nicknamed the Funnies. This is the second great lesson of D-Day. The invasion was not won only by the soldiers on the sand. It was won months earlier, in factories and design offices, by people solving impossible logistics problems. Wars at this scale are engineering problems as much as they are battles. By the end of June 6th, the Allies had a foothold in France. It was fragile, it was paid for in lives, but it held. Within a year, Nazi Germany would surrender. The road from these 5 beaches led all the way to the end of the war in Europe. So what do we take from D-Day all these decades later? That the biggest victories are rarely just about strength. They are about preparation, deception, hard decisions made with incomplete information, and engineering that quietly does the impossible. And they are about ordinary people doing extraordinary things when everything is on the line. If this story moved you, there's more to come. In the next episode, we'll go to the freezing ruins of a city where an entire army was swallowed whole, the battle that broke the German advance in the east, Stalingrad. Subscribe, and we'll see you there.